Remind us about this story. We were talking about on our planning call, like this goes back a few years, Drake.
Yeah, exactly. This grows out of a story, as you mentioned, that Jordan and I did a couple years ago. And that basically came out of a tip Jordan got about this case. You know, a lot of these trade secret cases, it's someone kind of walking out the door with some secrets from their employer. This is about an actual MSS officer. So he's the equivalent of like a CIA officer in China who was running this global spy ring. And one of their targets was GE Aviation. They're trying to get these high-tech jet engines. The FBI runs this amazing kind of sting operation, lures him out of China, arrests him, and puts him on trial here. And then all this incredible stuff comes out about him. And it really opens up this window into his employer, the MSS, the Ministry of State Security, which is this agency that's really at the center of a lot of these tensions between the U.S. and China.
Jordan, come on in here and talk a little bit about the cybersecurity element here, because espionage in this day and age, especially when it comes to stuff that's high tech, it's not what we think of in terms of like the spy movies and fiction. A lot of it's more kind of rudimentary than people really think.
Yeah, you know, one of the big takeaways from this case, I mean, a little bit of backstory is, as you mentioned, we published this piece in 2022. You know, we kind of outlined this amazing FBI investigation, but Drake and I continue to report it. You know, we keep reporting on this. And what we eventually get are these, you know, hours of secret, you know, audio and video recordings, thousands of pages of emails and text messages and all those things. And one of the things that you see in these documents is that spycraft, human-to-human communication, is how espionage works. They might also
simple, right?
They might also use hacking. They might also hack your computer while they are kind of socially manipulating you. But it's human-to-human interaction. The idea being you can get so much more from a person who knows things than you can even by manipulating their computers. And you know, this spy, this MSS officer that we're, you know, is the subject of this series, Xu Yanjun, he was actually really good at that. He made some mistakes that eventually led to his downfall, but he was really good at getting people, Western experts, aviation experts, to fly to China to give these presentations and to disclose confidential information about secret technologies.
Yeah, it is kind of fascinating when we think about kind of the race that is underway today between the U.S. and China and technology, whether it's AI or what have you. I mean, how do you think about some of the headlines today? We were just talking with Mike Shepard at our D.C. bureau, you know, the Pentagon adding this list and then withdrawing it, or the Federal Register. I mean, companies, countries, governments are constantly trying to find each other's secrets. Like, that's kind of part of normal business, is it not?
Right. And I think it's true also that, you know, everyone spies on everyone. Like the United States, we spy on our opponents, we spy on our allies. What's a little bit different about what the MSS does and what China kind of does as a matter of course is they use these state intelligence arms to spy on behalf of industry. So basically, it's not just like military technology or secrets about what our government wants to do. It's sort of proprietary information from private American companies. In this case, it was jet engines. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that in a lot of realms, China's basically caught up, right? Like electric vehicles, drones, you know,
or doing maybe
equipment.
Even better, some might say.
Yeah, exactly. Jet engines, for a variety of reasons that we get into in the podcast, are different, and so it's something where they're still trying to figure out how to make a jet engine as well, a commercial jet engine, as well as GE Aviation.
And this is really important for them because they're working on that alternative to Boeing and Airbus's single aisle plane from Comac. So that's why they want this.
Yeah, and there's this dynamic where, you know, a lot of these Western companies, or most of them, are working with their sort of the Comacs, the AVICs of the world, these Chinese state-owned companies, but then also they're dealing with IP going out the door to those, you know, business partners.
Jordan, talk about like when you first get a tip, like what do you do? Because I'm sure you guys get lots of tips. People call us sometimes or send us things and we're like, is this crazy? Is this what? Like, what do we do with
Usually it's crazy. For us at least.
There's something like a prison number. But let's not get into it. But talk to us about that.
Yeah, so there are really two phases of this reporting. As Drake mentioned, you know, we got a tip originally, probably in 2021, so it was during the pandemic, that there was this incredible espionage trial that was happening in Cincinnati, or it had happened in Cincinnati, and that there was some kind of Easter egg. There was some kind of secret about this case that we should go look into. And as often happens with these things, the tip was kind of unnecessarily vague. But we went and we downloaded and we ordered the transcripts. We read the transcripts and we said, oh, the secret is that this spy that the U.S. had just arrested, this actual spy, had kept the equivalent of a diary. And that prosecutors and the FBI had this diary. So that was the basis of our 2022 Business Week story. The second phase of reporting, after we published that story, Drake and I both realized they just arrested this guy with all of this information about his worldwide operations. There must be an even bigger story here. So we continued our reporting, and that's when we learned about the other cases that were connected to this. This was a treasure trove for U.S. officials, and that's where we wind up getting these audio recordings, these secret video recordings, and then that becomes the basis for this podcast series and a Bloomberg Originals documentary as well. And the more we learned, the more it just became apparent that we've both been covering this a while now. We've been writing about China for a while now. There was a period about 10 years ago when, kind of the story of China was copycat technology.
Right.
Factory to the world. They'll make your technology, but they can't make their own. That's an outdated idea. Like China has caught up, as Drake mentioned, or even surpassed the U.S. in many key areas. There are only a very small number that they haven't. Jet engines, semiconductors, and a few other areas. So we focus in on the jet engine, and one of the cool things about this project is we get to kind of geek out a little bit about why is it so hard to make a jet engine? Why is this a technology that America and Europe have had for 80 years that has been so hard to replicate? There are lots of reasons for that. It's a very interesting technology.